Welcome to the Innovia Consulting webinar series. This session is powered by US Transactions Corporation. USD is a boutique payment processing firm, providing you with personalized service. Scan the QR code to learn more about Innovia Consulting and to see the latest Business Central news and training for your business.
So welcome everybody. As it was mentioned, I'm going to go over drop shipment and special orders and Business Central. Now we're going to focus on Business Central, but I know there's always a chance that you might be on a version of Navision, right? The precursor to Business Central. The basic functionality is going to be the same. The setups and how you process it. Really, it's just more of a front end that's going to be different in the ease of navigating in Business Central. So just to go over what the difference is for those that don't know. So drop shipments are basically for items that you don't normally store in-house. You don't have them in your location. They're ordered by you but shipped directly to the customer. So shipping and receiving happens same time. The benefits obviously reduce handling, both in dollars and time, right? You're not having it shipped to you and then just basically ship it to the customer. The cons to this obviously is you don't have any eyes on the product. Right, the product never comes into your warehouse, so you are relying on that other location or the vendor to ship product that the customer ultimately believes, is coming from you. This differentiates from special orders. So special orders are usually items that you don't store in house, but that require some sort of final touch point in house before it goes to the customer. So they could be high value products or unique products. Products that may need to go through some sort of in-house process, whether it be just quality or repacking even. And so it's very similar to the normal purchase order, sales order process. You receive the purchase order, you review it, and then you ship the sales order separately. So that part is basically the same. The difference being that the orders are linked, right? So the purchase order and sales order are linked together. So that you maintain that traceability. So obviously the pros there allows for review of the product before the customer. Cons is your increased handling, right? So you've got your shipping time from the vendor to your location, and then the shipping time from your location to the customer. So I'm going to go through some of the setups first, and then we're going to go through some of the processing. So for those that are not familiar with Business Central, one of the big pluses is you can add things to your bar up here. So you can see I've added a lot of the stuff that we're going to be touching today: purchasing codes, sales orders, purchase orders, requisition worksheet. Makes it a lot easier when you're doing your day-to-day work. So the first thing you're going to set up is your purchasing codes. So these are generally just examples of what customers or what you can have as a company. So call in is just your normal order, right? And you don't have to specify a purchasing code on a sales order or a purchase order. But if you wanted to have the differentiation, the call in is just your normal day-to-day. Then we've created a drop ship. And again, all you do is check off the drop ship box, and then special orders. Order comes to us first and goes to the customer, and just check this off. This is all the functionality or the setups you need to get drop shipments and special orders to work. Now, that being said, you're not limited to this. You can actually have multiple different drop shipments and special order codes. So you can actually have different codes for different scenarios. So they could both be drop shipments, but you could have a code for high value items, and then you could have a code for quality control items, that sort of thing. Oops, sorry. So one of the things that you're going to have to do for any process here is I'm going to create a sales order. I'm going to show you is by default, the purchasing code does not show on the sales order line. So I had to add this. So for those not familiar, I went to personalize, added the field, and then click down here. And then I just found the purchasing code that was in the available fields, and I dragged it over. So I did that earlier, so it shows in mine. Does not show by default. And then we're going to go back, and the last bit of setup, if we go to items, and I'm just going to show you the one example. is the things that you need. And again, if you're doing one-off drop shipments or one-off special orders where they're not that consistent, you don't need to actually set this up. This setup that we're doing is for use in one of the scenarios I'm going to show you later on, where it's part of your standard practice. You do a lot of them, and it will make your life a lot easier. So what you do is on the items that you drop ship, you set the replenishment system to purchase, and then you actually set the vendor number that you deal with exclusively. Again, this will be used in the final scenario I show you, but this is a setup, and that's all you need, those two items. So that being said, we're going to go back and we're going to create a sales order. So typical process is you can enter the sales order. I picked my customer that I set up for these scenarios and the item. And I'm going to leave the purchasing code out here because I do want to show you one thing. So we're going to sell 10 of these items. So what this will do is, you see how you get your standard Business Central warning. The inventory is lower than expected at this location, so you're going to run into issues if you're trying to sell this normally. So now if I go back and I enter the drop ship and re-enter the quantity, you can see that the warning message goes away because ultimately on-hand inventory means nothing when you're doing drop shipments, right? You're going to basically receive it from the vendor and then ship it out to the customer in the system. And then it goes directly to the customer. So it's an in and out. It doesn't matter whether you have it on hand. The purchase order will put it on hand. The sales order will relieve it. So that's it for the sales order. That's as easy as it is to say this is a drop shipment order. So we're going to go back and we're going to create a purchase order. And again, I'm picking the vendor that we had specified for the item. You don't need to in this case because it's a one-off. And all we have to do is go up to order. Oops, sorry. Actions, functions, drop shipment, and get sales order. Whoops, sorry. See, there we go. I already made my first mistake. On the purchase order, you actually have to change the ship to say, okay, we're going to ship it directly to a customer. And you pick the customer that you made the sales order for. So now if we go to actions, functions, drop shipment, and get sales order, this will list all the sales orders in the system that are specified for that customer. All you do is hit OK. It brings in all that information for you. So it brings in the item number, it brings in the quantity. If we had locations set up in this database, it would bring that in. Same thing with bins, right? So if you have that in your system, it would automatically do that as well. Okay, so now we can close this. And if we go to the sales order, I just want to show you how easy it is to navigate if you're not doing things right away. Is if we just go and look. And you go to related, order. Oops, sorry. Always forget where this is. Oh, under the other, no. Okay, I'll get back to that. Sorry about that. So when we go into here, this is a sales order that we've got. So we're going to go in and we're going to basically process the shipment. So we go in here and we hit post. And now this is shipped. So we go to this item. And we view it. We're going to go look at the ledger entries. You You can see here that both the purchase and the sales order that we created just posted. So the purchase order increased the quantity by 10, and then the sales order immediately shipped it out by minus 10, so they net to 0. And if we just want to prove this out, if we go to the purchase order, you can see that it was received. So the benefit here, obviously, is you don't have to deal with both documents, right? You could have done the exact same thing from the purchase order if you wanted to do it from there. So the minute you get notification that they've sent the product to the customer, you could receive it here. That would ship the sales order. So we go back to the sales order. And this is what I meant to show you before. Whoops, sorry. I was looking in the wrong spot. If you wanted to easily see the purchase orders that were there, it's line button, order, drop shipment, purchase order. And that will launch the purchase orders that's linked to that sales order, so you can easily see back and forth. And then invoicing takes place, obviously, separately. So those are not linked, those are two separate. So you can actually do this. Say, okay, we're gonna invoice sales order. And if we go to the purchase order, you can see that's still open. We're gonna edit it first because we need to enter in the vendor invoice number. And then you can post it. All normal. So this works out well. Again, if you want to send the item directly from the vendor to the customer, no in between, and you can see the processing itself is pretty easy. So now we're going to do the same thing just to show you the difference. We're going to create a sales order. $18.96. But we're going to change this to special order. So same thing. So now if we go to the vendor, sorry, the purchase order, pick the vendor, and then again, special order, get sales orders. Okay, everything's in there. So again, the big difference here though is they're not linked in terms of doing the receiving and the shipping at the same time. So if I go back, we go to our sales order, we're going to ship it. If we go to the purchase order this time, you can see here that it has not received anything yet. So the purchase order has to be processed separately. We can do this here. And now this is received. And then much like the other one, what we could do is invoice each one. Put it in edit mode, vendor invoice, post it. And we'll get rid of the sales order. So these are one-off ones, right? So this is one where you just have one item you need to get out there, and you need to either do it through special order or drop shipments. So the process itself is good, but it doesn't really lend itself to a lot of day-to-day business when you're doing a lot of them, right? So that through that, we've got what is the requisition worksheet. So we're going to do a bit of pre-work here. We're going to create a sales order. For a few different items. And then we're actually going to go to what the requisition worksheet. And you can click the drop shipment at the top and get sales orders. You can apply different filters if you need to. For this one, we know the sell to customer is 10,000. It brings those lines in, and because they all use the same vendor, it's going to create one purchase order, right? So if you just hit process, carrot action message, if we go back, you've got this purchase order for the 3 lines, right? So it makes that a lot easier. But the powerful part of this is we're going to delete this. Go back to that sales order. I'm going to change it. And so the items I'm going to use are a bit different. So all these items are going to go to the same customer, right? They're all going to go to customer 10,000. But the difference being is these items were set up for different vendors. So you can see here it's vendor 10,000, 20,000, and 30,000. So if we go process carrot action message, and now go back, now we've got 3 purchase orders. One for each one of those items. So the sales order itself is linked to 3 different purchase orders. So we go back to the sales order and we post it. And we're just shipping. We go into each one of these. You can see here, quantity received 5. So receive first line on this one, and it's going to be the same in every single one. So this is where the drop shipment functionality can really come into play when you're dealing with multiple items, multiple vendors, where it makes it a lot easier, where you don't have to actually manually go in and create 3 separate purchase orders. Again, we're using small numbers, right? This could be much larger. So the amount of time saved where you're creating one purchase order through the requisition worksheet makes it a lot easier. And the same sort of thing can happen. And I think we've got enough time. Oh, I can't. Can't undo it because we received it. But let me just do this. Going to create a new sales order. And one more. So if we go in here, back to the requisition, so these are 3 separate sales orders, but they all happen to have the same vendor. So it's the opposite here, where it actually will create one purchase order with those 3 items.
And Larry, you do have a question from the
Yep.
audience, which is how do you create a partial shipment? And my apologies if you might have already shown this or.
Yep. So much like this, you should be able to just go money receive 0. And if we just ship, on this one, we're doing the receiving, but the same sort of thing. So now if we go to this one and go to order drop shipment, this is the one sales order where that was just for this item. You can see that it actually shipped that item. So the same thing, Jackie, is it could be a partial shipment of 1 line, or the same thing would happen if we only shipped 1 of that product. Then what would happen is it would update the purchase order, or vice versa, of just the 1. If that makes sense.
Thank you,
And
Larry.
Adam, I agree with the profit margin. This was just for examples, but the same sort of thing, right? With vendors, is if you can, it does. My example used the same customer. In ideal world, it wouldn't be, right? So you could have 5 different customers with drop shipments, but the items they're picking happen to go to the same vendor. This allows you to create the one purchase order, which again reduces your overall cost of shipping and handling and that sort of thing. And so those are the examples. Any questions other than ones that Jackie has already put in? So Jackie, when you work on the sales order, so the cross-reference again, I'm assuming this is what we're talking about. You can see that it says drop shipment. And what you can do is go to the order button and hit purchase order. So I was on the sales line. This launches the purchase order. Is that what you mean, Jackie? Basically where you can see that they're linked back and forth. Yeah, I believe so. Let me just go back. I know it's there behind the scenes, but let me see if this is a field that we can add quickly. Yeah, so it doesn't look like it's an addable field, at least not through personalization. But let me just show you. On the line, I'm just going to do the little cheat of Control-Alt F1. Somewhere in here, it's supposed to show. Give me 1 sec here. do this. Purchase order number is 10626. Okay, so Jackie, I know that there is a field that looks like it's probably just not addable here, but I've seen that behind the scenes because that is how it links it. There is a field there with the purchase order number, purchase order line number behind the scenes. So it's reportable that way, and it's obviously, you know, small modification to get it added to the sales line table, and the same thing on the purchase side. So I know the link is there. You're welcome. So I think that wraps up everything we had today. If you have any other questions, you could send it to me. I think most of you guys, a lot of people I've dealt with in support side. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions around this, and the recording will be made available.